Hey, everybody. I'm Chris Hurn, the CEO and founder of Fountainhead. Welcome to our webinar. I have a feeling we're going to do a lot of these in the days ahead, but I appreciate you joining us. We have hundreds of people on the line. I'm going to try to be as insightful as I can be, given the limited information that's available out there. I want to try to help you make sense of some of the things that are occurring. Somebody's asking me that he has no sound or picture. I don't know. Anyway, hopefully y'all can hear me. So let's get started. So we are in unprecedented times, to say the least. And it looks like most of us will be quarantined, whether we like it or not, probably by later this week. And that's going to have a massive ripple effect on the business economy of this country, the economy in general, but the businesses that make up the economy. So we're very concerned about that. We know that there's been a lot of information that has been sent out there, sort of on the 80,000 foot level. Not a lot of specifics just yet. I'm going to tell you about some of them that are happening, but and certainly we're going to talk a little bit about how we and the SBA hope to step in and help save as many of these businesses as we can. So one of the things to know is that there was, as probably most of you know, not last week, but the week before, the initial volley of a relief or recovery efforts was passed legislation, and it provided there's about $8 billion amount that included some SBA disaster loans amounts in it. The problem is, of course, the president last Wednesday went on national television for a few minutes and announced that he was going to be giving SBA $50 billion in increased lending authority. And then the following morning, last Thursday, and even on Friday, there were a number of press releases issued by SBA talking about the disaster program, which the best I can tell is separate and apart from what the president was talking about with the $50 billion in increased lending authority for SBA's programs. Predominantly, it'll probably come through the SBA 7A program. So there is a little bit of information about the disaster loans. As it stands now, it looks like the agency will either make them themselves, or they're going to come out with what's called the 7B program, which is a disaster program that has private sector lenders like myself participate in. Those are the loans up to $2 million. They'll have low interest rates, and probably if it's a 7B, it'll probably have a 90% guarantee on it. That's about all we know at the moment on that. They will have somewhat limited infrastructure to deliver those programs, those loans, I should say, directly. So therefore, they're going to have to rely on people in the SBA world, such as our company and many others, to try and help out in that regard. On the legislation that is moving its way through various channels, the Impact Act of 2020, that's Impact for Small Businesses Act of 2020, that's the legislation that was introduced in the Senate Small Business Committee. That's with Senator Rubio. That particular one includes provisions for waiving borrower fees and lender fees on SBA 7A loans, increasing the guarantees on those loans themselves, increasing the SBA's sort of third largest program after 7A and 504, which is called Express, increasing the maximum Express loan size from $350,000 to $1 million. And that's about all we know at the moment. We have been inundated since Friday with inquiries, actually even loan submissions. There's a number of businesses out there in all sectors of the economy, all industries, that are being affected by it. I think it's going to probably get worse before it gets better, unfortunately, once a lot of us are sequestered effectively in our homes, and that's when business is effectively going to grind to a halt. And unfortunately, there's 7 million businesses in America with employees, small to mid-sized businesses in America with employees. And those are the ones that are going to be very highly affected by this. And a lot of the inquiries that we have gotten regard how am I going to make payroll? We've had several conversations about this with staff over the weekend and even this morning. We had most of our staff here at 6:30 this morning training our non-credit staff on how to help us with the influx of submissions that we expect. We certainly want to try and help as many people as possible. We want to keep businesses lights on, payroll being processed, and vendors being paid. And, this is our small part in helping in the recovery efforts. None of us are medical professionals here at Fountainhead, but we want to try and we couldn't save too many people, of course, but hopefully we can save some small to mid-sized companies and their employees. So that's basically what we know at the moment. I am very hopeful, and I've told a lot of media already today, we're hopeful that SBA, who are tremendous public servants, we hope that they will be working day and night to get the new regs and rules out about how we will be able to process these loans. I am hopeful that that will happen in a matter of days and not weeks, because a lot of these small businesses will not last weeks or months without having some source of capital. So it's a real problem. We're also trying to expedite this process as best we can. Obviously, we've sort of mobilized our staff to try and process these as quick as they come in. We have to take sort of a first in, first out process of reviewing these loans. We're hopeful that part of the rules and regs that will get promulgated will allow for businesses to maybe not have to document quite as much as they normally do on a normal SBA underwriting, and allow us to expedite the processing of the loan. We certainly don't want to make any loans that may go bad 6 or 12 or 18 months from now or more. But we have to be very thoughtful about how we do this. So far, a lot of the inquiries that we've seen are businesses that were very healthy, thriving businesses as recently as mid-February. And unfortunately, the revenues have just plummeted, through the remainder of February and into this month, or at least we're being told into this month. Most of them don't have their interim financial statements available for us just yet for March, since obviously it's not over. But it's pretty dire for a lot of folks, and so we're trying to be as calm and rational and quickly processing these things as we can. We will be counting on our network of intermediaries who send us a lot of these transactions to be talking to their existing clients about how they can get access to this capital. We will be also counting on a lot of the smaller banks and credit unions that regularly refer business to us in the SBA world, because they do not have an SBA department. We'll be counting on them to continue to send transactions to us. We have heard a lot directly from business owners all across the country on this. There's unfortunately, because we don't have too much in the way of specifics yet, there's a lot of concern. There's a lot of frustration, and I'm afraid that may continue for a few more days. Hopefully not. Hopefully our public servants in Washington will, both in Congress, the president, and in the agency will move very quickly on this. I think they all recognize the really unprecedented situation that we find ourselves in. So with that, that's about as much as I've got from an update standpoint. I'm going to try to answer a lot of these questions. We're getting a lot of them in right now. So I think it's best if I hear directly from you and try to address your concerns, and we'll go from there. I'll get to as many as I can. Hopefully we won't have too many repeat questions, but in the meantime, I would also encourage you, if you're a business owner or you work with business owners, please visit our website, fountainheadcc.com, and go to the apply page. You can download the application. We've already redid our website to account for coronavirus, COVID-19 recovery loans. We have a list of minimum documentation that we'll need to review to process these loans. Of course, we are anticipating what the agency will request that we need. So just keep that in mind. But if you want to get ahead of things and hopefully get your place in the queue, I would urge you to do that now. Don't delay. So that because we will be, as I said, we're going to be taking these in the order that they were submitted. So the sooner that you can get the basic documentation that we need in, the faster we'll be able to process the loan requests, and hopefully the faster we'll be able to fund the loan request as well. Okay. So let's see. Please make sure also we're going to have these updates from time to time. Presumably you're on our list already. That's how you got to this webinar, but certainly follow us on social media. We've just search for Fountainhead. We're all over the place. On all the social media accounts, and we can, give you the latest information there. So let's jump to the questions. Okay. Matt, you want to help me? What's our first one?
Rebecca.
Okay. Rebecca asked a few minutes ago, how will SBA evaluate and measure credit elsewhere for disaster funding? That's a great question, Rebecca. And I'm merely speculating when I tell you that it's probably going to be similar to how the credit elsewhere test is viewed today. I don't know that there's going to be too much in the way of changes from that. So in other words, in simplistic terms, if the borrower has a lot of personal liquidity, unencumbered non-retirement personal liquidity, it'll be somewhat of a challenge for them to apply and be approved for a recovery loan. And the theory behind that is because the presumption is that they're going to use the bulk of their liquidity first before they apply for a loan. But that's, again, it's just mere speculation on my part. I think sometimes this is a very frustrating component of applying for an SBA loan, because if you have a little bit of liquidity, it doesn't necessarily mean you want to tap it all before you apply for a loan. So it's a little bit of a balancing act. Usually if your loan amount that you're seeking is more than your liquidity, most of the time you'll be in good shape in that regard. But again, this is just mere speculation on my part at this time. Okay, let's go to the next question. So you want to pull that one up, Matt? As loan brokers, what can we do to best help you and streamline the process? Interesting you've asked that, Ben. We are going to actually make available our templates, our credit approval memo templates, so that if you're a fairly sophisticated commercial loan broker and you're trying to help your clients apply for these loans, we're going to encourage you to fill in the bulk of this information. Doesn't mean I'm going to ask you to do the narratives and explanations on the particular submission, but I am going to ask you to fill in a lot of the information. It'll help expedite things for us. We will have a training webinar and teach you how to do some of this if you're not familiar with it. So we will, we're kind of all in this together, of course, gang. So we're going to be leaning on the people that are the intermediaries that send us a lot of business. We're going to be leaning on you a little bit to help us help these business owners by helping fill in a lot of this information. Of course, we do and will double check it, triple check it, but it'll go a long ways in terms of us getting through these files quicker than usual. So that's how you can help us, Ben. All right, next question. Is there a loan application we can start filling out to be ready for submitting? Yes, there is, Kimberly. Go to fountainhead.cc.com/apply, and you'll see the information right there. It should pop right up, coronavirus recovery loans. Go ahead and fill that out and start submitting that information. And like I said, we'll get you in the queue, so that you'll be one of the early ones that we process. Okay, let's do the next question, Matt. Someone's commented, SBA will never act this fast. I hope you're wrong, Barb. I sincerely hope you are. I hope these public servants will understand the gravity of the situation, and will understand that we all need to act quickly on this. And the sooner they do, the sooner they can unleash, private sector folks like us who hustle and really know what we're doing. And so we can help more folks. So anyway, that's not really a question. It was more of a statement. But what are some other questions we've got? Will there be a list of industries that qualify? There likely will not. It'll probably be the same industries that are eligible for SBA financing today, which generally means most industries, most for-profit, privately held businesses will qualify. But I will give you a few of the ineligible types. I mean, if you're a business that is involved in anything of a sexually prurient nature, that's probably not going to qualify. It doesn't qualify now. I don't expect that it would qualify for these types of loans. If you're involved in any sort of multi-level marketing or pyramid type situation, those are clearly not going to qualify. If you're an investor, what I mean by that is you do speculative investing activities. Maybe let's say you own a bunch of multifamily apartments, or you own a bunch of residential homes that you're leasing out. Those are probably not going to qualify. So there's that's just a short list of it, but this is really, SBA has always been around to help specifically businesses that are have employees, that are operating companies, that are making a widget, seeing patients, distributing product, whatever it is. That's really what the Small Business Administration tries to help. So that'll continue with this. Likelihood is that there'll be disaster loans for individuals as well that have been impacted for this. But again, I'm just merely speculating on that. Let's go to some other questions. Okay. What's the next one, Matt?
Let's go ahead and do Carolyn.
Okay. Customer reported they were told by SBA that the bank had to turn them down before they were eligible. That can't be true. Do you know anything on that? I'm a little surprised by that. I would question, Carolyn, the validity of that statement. That might have been more of an issue of the credit elsewhere test. If a bank turns down a borrower's application, well, let me back up. If a bank can make the loan on a conventional basis, that is sort of the default threshold that SBA uses to determine whether they meet the credit elsewhere test or not. Okay, so now, fortunately, most banks don't lend money on commercial real estate, for instance, at 90% loan to value, which you can do with SBA financing. Most conventional banks don't make a conventional loan on business acquisitions. Most conventional banks don't make a loan on working capital over a 10-year term, for instance. So in any of those situations, they would not fit within the typical bank or credit union's credit policy. So that actually would serve to address the credit elsewhere test. They aren't able to get credit elsewhere, so therefore any of those institutions would want to potentially offer an SBA loan that they could actually make under these more generous terms and conditions. That's the best way I could call it. All right, what are some other ones? Let's see. How are these loans, good faith waive 90% guarantee, different from other SBA loans? Are these loans saleable in the secondary market? What justifications will borrowers be asked to make to ensure that they've been adversely affected by coronavirus? Looking at these loans will be different from current SBA loans in that they will have a much higher guarantee amount. The borrower fees, which are normally financed into these projects, will be waived. The lender fees will be waived. I suspect, again, this is me just speculating here, I suspect there will be, if it's done properly, there will be some relaxing of the normal process in underwriting these loans and documenting these loans in order to expedite the processing of these loans and the funding of these loans. So those are some differences. What was the other question? Will they be saleable in the secondary market? I believe for 7A loans, they will be saleable in the secondary market. That's probably very much inside baseball, but the reason that's important is because a lot of SBA lenders sell off the guarantees in the secondary market so that they can recycle the funds and actually help other borrowers make more loans, basically. So yeah, I would expect that. Unfortunately, if it's the disaster loans, the 7B with the that have a guarantee on it, historically those haven't been made eligible for secondary market sales. So we'll have to wait and see if this rises to special circumstances situation. And then what justifications? I suspect, again, going back to some of the things that I've seen over the last 20 plus years in the industry, borrowers will probably have to certify that they've been impacted, write some paragraph, a sentence or two or a paragraph explaining what's occurred. They don't have to write a novel. They don't even have to write an article. They just have to give us some basic information explaining how they've been negatively or adversely affected by this. And then frankly, we'll also have to probably see it on a recent profit and loss statement, because that'll show the fall off in sales and profits. So that's probably what we're going to be looking for. I've already discussed it with my team. We, again, trying to get ahead of this and anticipate what's going to come down the pike. We will likely be looking for borrowers to show us, to talk about their payables, their typical monthly payables, inclusive of their payroll. And we'll probably take that amount, take it times 6, 9, 12 months. And that'll probably be part of the way we make determinations on the loan sizes. Okay. And obviously these won't have equity injections for these working capital loans. All right. What are some others? Will debt refinance be an eligible use of proceeds for these loans, or are they meant for working capital only? So typically the disaster loans are going to be for working capital only. The SBA 7A loans, even if they're applied for the recovery efforts, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be able to look at debt refinance in addition to working capital. Shouldn't be a problem. I mean, obviously a lot of the commercial interest rates have come down dramatically over the last few weeks. So it's always a good time to refinance that as well. So let's go to another question. Money. Okay, sorry. There are two still buckets of money to lend. 7A, the tweaks to existing programs administered by the existing 7A lenders, and 7B, lent directly from the agency. Is that correct? Now, the 7B, my understanding is that is actually disaster loans that'll be administered by private sector lenders. Those are not the disaster loans that are lent directly from the agency. As I said at the beginning of this webinar, the agency is not staffed in order to administer $50 billion of funding. That's going to take a monumental effort, even from the private sector, even from the couple thousand SBA lenders that exist out there today. So it's a little bit different. And frankly, we don't know how the legislation is fully going to roll out, but there may be some proceeds of the $50 billion that may be into SBICs. I mean, there's a variety of different things. I don't think the 504 program will be that impacted by the new lending authority. But of course, even with existing 504s, you can get deferments. You can get deferments with existing 7A loans. So there's a whole process with that. But if somebody has an existing SBA loan and they're struggling, certainly they should reach out to their lender and talk about that as well. Okay, let's Oh, there you go. If a client currently has an SBA loan, would they qualify for an SBA disaster loan? Yeah, very, very likely they would. I don't, getting really in the weeds, I'm not sure if how the agency will feel about, eligible dollars, maximum eligible dollars per borrower. So that remains to be seen. So, in other words, typically, a business owner has up to $5 million in eligible proceeds available to them. But if they've already got, say, $4 million SBA loan and they want to get a $2 million recovery loan, disaster loan, however you want to call it, I'm not sure if that's going to be allowable. They may only be able to get $1 million at that point. But again, devil's going to be in the details that hopefully will get rolled out later this week. Sorry, I've been on the phone all day today talking to a lot of media, and I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit. Let's go to the next one. Most of the merchants that need this disaster relief funding aren't SBA qualified. How do you help those merchants then with your programs? I'm not sure what you refer to here, Matt, as merchants, and nor do I understand why they aren't SBA qualified, perhaps. I think there's going to be a lot of companies that qualify for this, so I'm not really worried about that. I think, in fact, most of the 7 million small businesses in America with employees are gonna qualify for this. So I don't know what you're referring to. Maybe if you have a follow-up question on that. Let's see. We're getting a few of the same types of questions, but we'll keep going. Any of the standard requirements to qualify for SBA funding be waived or lowered, i.e. FICO scores, time in business, etc.? Well, first of all, there is no restriction on time and business per SBA. This is a common misperception. I'm not saying it's easy to get a startup loan through SBA, but oftentimes lenders who participate in the program overlay their credit policy on top of SBA's policy. So, and oftentimes it's much easier for them to blame their decline on the agency, unfortunately, than it is to explain that they have a policy about that you have to be in business 2 or 3 years, for instance. So, And what was the rest of that question? I'm sorry, you already blasted by it. Anyway, all right, let's go to another one. Would I be able to combine a seller-held second term loan on an office condo and terming out of SBA line of credit into one loan? Probably not going to be. It kind of depends on how long the seller-held second has been out there, and if they're arm's length from the borrower. Terming out an existing SBA line of credit into one loan, again, this is meant to be additive, folks. This is not necessarily meant to refinance out of an existing SBA loan. SBA is very sensitive about doing so, understandably. So I'm not so sure that's going to probably happen. There's a good question that I've seen lots of times. Do you have to be cash flow positive to qualify? Again, I'm merely speculating based on my dealings with the agency over the last few decades. You will probably have to demonstrate that you were cash flow positive prior to the impact of the coronavirus. And in fact, of the 300 plus inquiries we've already gotten today when we arrived at the office, most of the companies were thriving all the way up until mid-February, when things sort of hit the roadblock, and so I think that's probably, it would make sense for us to consider that in processing these loans. As I've said in previous webinars and other calls, we don't want to make loans that are going to go bad 6, 12, 18 months from now. We want to, we can't save everybody, unfortunately, as much as we'd like to. We need to save the businesses that were healthy, that were impacted by this considerably. If you have a business that wasn't doing very well prior to this and it's been exacerbated and is doing worse by the coronavirus, that's going to be a tough one, I'm afraid. And it is what it is. If you've got a business that you've got 10, 20, 40, 60 employees, and you were cash flow positive prior to mid-February, very high likelihood that you're going to qualify for this kind of financing. What's another one? Is there an advantage for a client to apply for a disaster loan versus a standard express loan? Not necessarily. The disaster loan, I mean, again, we don't quite know how it's going to roll out. And the standard express loans are typically lines of credit. Can you tell them to quiet down? Our office here, talking pretty loudly. All right. Let's see. We've already answered that question. Let me go to some others. Let's see. This is a follow-up question. Thank you for doing this, Rich. Follow-up question to the retail merchant question. What does this do? Many retail stores are cyclical and don't have great financials this time of year. Some also have merchant cash advance loans out there currently. What credit standards are they going to be using? That's good. I thank you for clarifying that, Rich, a little bit for us. The credit standards are going to be, I would anticipate them being the same as they are now, which is typically a business is going to have to send us 3 years of business tax returns, 3 years of personal tax returns, a business debt schedule, an authorization to release credit so we can look at their personal debts, an interim financial statement, and in our case, we'll probably want it within 60 days. Even though the standard to close would be within 120 days, but we want as current of information as we can, and then also a personal financial statement. So those are the sort of the standard 6 documents that form the basis of most of the quantitative underwriting. I don't see that going away. I understand that this time of year, some retail stores may be cyclical in certain parts of the country, but the reality is, the agency and the participating lenders like ourselves, we don't want to violate the first rule of lending money, which is to get repaid. So, if we can demonstrate it's a cyclical business, that this is the slowest part of the year, we can look at historical financials that it makes sense that this is the case every year, and now it's been even worse, poorly affected by this. Maybe it's possible. I don't know. A lot of this is going to be, as I said, it'll depend on what the agency rolls out here, hopefully in the days ahead. Let's see. Here's a question from Jim. Watched your Friday live stream, and I'm curious whether the owner of an existing hotel with an underlying mortgage can take advantage of these SBA funds, assuming that neither existing first lien lenders nor the SBA will look favorably on a second lien. Look, I think there's going to be a lot of hoteliers that are affected. There's not much in the way of travel right now for leisure or for business. Most people are going to be confined to their homes, probably for the next few weeks. So not a lot of people are going to be in hotels. I've actually even heard already from somebody who personally reached out to me who has a very new hotel. It's a Marriott flag. It's considered an excellent flag, and their business has absolutely dropped off a cliff in the last few weeks. So this will even affect some of the perceived best businesses, best brands, franchises, flags, etc., that are out there. I don't think anyone's quite immune to a lot of this. So, again, the point of the funds is not necessarily to refinance an underlying mortgage. It's really to augment the cash flows of the business. It's to provide working capital so that the business can stay in business, does not have to let people go, does not have to get completely behind in their payables, that sort of thing. So I would expect that we'll see a lot of folks in the hospitality business that'll be trying to get some relief here. Let's see, what are some other ones? Oops. Recommendations for clients in the hotel industry. Reservations have come to a standstill. Temporary closure is likely inevitable. Currently on an SBA 7A loan. So a few ways to answer that question. This is kind of what we were just talking about. I mean, I think a lot of folks in the travel business are going to be adversely affected by this. I don't see them not being adversely affected. Closing the hotel, I think that's, at least in the near term, that might be an eventuality. Getting these loans to reopen is something that's certainly a possibility. The issue of if you have a current SBA financing now gets back to what I answered a few minutes ago about how much eligible dollars one can have. I don't anticipate the SBA is going to suspend that rule, that maximum threshold of the 5 million, but I could be wrong. So I don't know. I guess stay tuned. We'll find out. Let's see what else. Will these loans have to be fully collateralized? Will borrower have to put up personal residence to meet this requirement? Yeah, Ken, as you know, typically with SBA 7A loans, they are by statute fully collateralized loans, and part of getting full collateralization is oftentimes to put a second on a borrower's personal resident. I don't anticipate that changing. That's definitely been the norm for SBA financing for as long as I've been in it. It's much like personal guarantees. I occasionally get the question, do I have to offer a personal guarantee on this loan? All SBA loans, you have to do a personal guarantee. It may not be exactly what we want to do as a business owner, but it's oftentimes what we have to do to get financing. And frankly, from a standpoint of being a U.S. taxpayer, I mean, part of the reason why we ask for this is because we're trying to make sure that we don't have major losses and write-offs as a result of this lending that SBA does, which the government guaranteed lending. So that's why it's in existence.
Chris, if you'll scroll up, Marty has a question about documentation that's needed.
Marty, where? Oops.
It's been upvoted 4 times. Just keep going down a little bit.
Okay. These are good. The upvotes on the questions, folks. Keep doing that so we can see what's most relevant to most of you. Can you repeat the 6 documents? Sure. So if you go to our website, fountainheadcc.com, and go to the Apply tab, you'll see the 6 documents that we normally request there. Where did that go?
Somebody must have uploaded something.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, it keeps moving. It's dynamic, I guess. So that's not very helpful for me. I'm trying to find out where his questions are. Wow, where did it go? Did everybody just suddenly upvote Marty's questions so they go up even? Yeah, they did. They did. Okay, stop. Just stop for a second. Don't upvote a question while I'm in the middle of answering it, or I can't see the question. So 3 years of personal tax returns, 3 years of business tax returns, interim financial statement within 60 days on the business, personal financial statement within 60 days, dated within 60 days, business debt schedule, because this gives me the long-term liabilities of the operating company. And then last, we have an authorization to release personal credit, because that gives us your personal debt obligations. That's what we look for. Those are the 6 items. And then I guess the 7th would be, tell us a little bit about what you're trying to do. What would be the use of proceeds? How have you been affected by this, et cetera? That's sort of the baseline that I think we're going to need in order to process these loans. We'll probably need more, okay? But that's at least a good start. All right, let's see what else we got.
We're getting a few questions about, is the webinar being recorded? It is, and it'll be sent to them directly after this for a replay.
There you go. You probably all heard Matt, but I'll repeat him. We are recording the webinar, and we will send it out to everybody for a replay if you need to rewatch it. How to get an SBA without a down payment because I'm using my savings to keep the doors open. Well, the good thing is these working capital SBA loans will probably very likely not require a down payment. So using your savings to keep the doors open is great, and hopefully until we can come in and help you with these loans. And of course, as I said earlier, these loans are all going to not have any prepayment penalties with them. So that means if God willing, we have a snapback recovery, starting in May or June, then when things get back to a more normal level, hopefully you can repay these loans early and not have any penalty by doing so. Let's see. I'm going to go back to the top. What else? Yes, so you're going to get the recording. Got that question. See if there's any new ones in here.
Tim has a question.
Tim's got a question. Let me see. All right. We're getting them all over. My business just started in February 1st of 2020. We are not showing positive cash flow quite yet. I'm in the child care business, so it's a matter of time before my working capital gets low. Could I still qualify? That's a good one, Tim. I don't know. I mean, typically these funds are going to be for companies that have been around for some time, that have been so adversely affected. So, but that's, the fact is you started in February last month, and clearly you've been affected. I'm not really sure. I mean, we'll have to see what happens. We'll have to wait for the SBA to come out with all the specifics on this. And obviously when they do, we'll do another webinar, make sure we translate everything for everybody to make it simple and make sure everybody can understand it. But anyway.
I'd like to know if we are a national lender or geo-specific.
Who would like to know this?
Marty Johnston.
Marty would like to know if we are a national lender or geo-specific. We are a national lender. We are what's called an SBLC, a small business lending company, which means we have a national footprint to make SBA 7A loans. We've also always done SBA 504 loans. Many of you know me as kind of the biggest advocate for 504 financing for quite some time. And then we also have a conventional product that we do only on commercial real estate. So it's not going to be as applicable here. But so we don't have those geographic restrictions that a lot of banks and credit unions do. Let's see. To be clear, again, I see that statement somebody said that SBA is never going to act this fast. We'll see. I hope you're wrong, and hopefully once SBA acts, then it'll be in the hands of people like us. And I can assure you, we do intend to act very fast on these things. We know how important this is for so many people and their families. And, we sincerely want to try and help as many people as we can. So, I hope you're wrong, whoever said that. Let's see. Will brokers be able to get paid on these loans? Will they be limited to the maximum 30,000 recently proposed? Well, the maximum 30,000 recently proposed is if you do a bunch of consulting work and can justify the work that you've done based on the loan size. Brokers getting paid on these loans, yeah, I imagine there's probably a way that we'll do that. But again, a lot of it's going to depend on how SBA rules out some of these regs. What is the minimum the borrower can apply for? We have a hard minimum of $200,000, and we go up to the $5 million SBA 7A cap. On 504s and conventional, we go well above that. But for these purposes, we have to maintain that $200,000 minimum because it's an inordinate amount of work to process these loans. If for some reason it becomes streamlined under the circumstances, we may consider doing lowering our threshold. But as it stands right now, that'll be our minimum. Frankly, as I said earlier, I would rather give somebody a little extra, knowing that maybe we can smooth out their cash flow problems, and without prepayment penalties, they can pay us back early, than not giving them enough. So that's how we'll operate. Let's see. Bobby says, I want to help you guys package the loans. As a loan broker, please reach out to me if you need help. I currently have 2 new submissions. Our broker's still being paid 2 points. Yep. Reach out to us, Bobby. We'll talk. That's very helpful. Thank you. I hope everybody's going to do their fair share to help other people. Curious how loan amounts are being determined for these requests. We don't really know what's bound to happen, like the hotel question. Yeah, I mean, I'm very curious too. As I said, I explained earlier, we talked to our employees about being very sensitive about monthly payables and what that amounts to, and making sure it includes the payroll. That will probably be the focus of what we finance, and to run that out, like I said, 6 months, 9 months, maybe 12 months, just to be safe. That's probably how we're going to look at these loans and determining how much we'll finance. So, what else? So somebody said we want to help small business owners, but a lot of us are small business owners as well. Will we be able to monetize these transactions? It remains to be seen, Ben. I don't know. If you're a brokerage firm that has a number of employees, I think you stand a much better chance of getting assistance than if you're just a sole proprietor. I think, SBA's got to, and lenders like me have to, we have to allocate our resources where they'll have the biggest impact. And so that's naturally going to be toward the employees, the 7 million businesses with employees. How do we help micro borrowers? Great question. Probably it'll be through the Express program or the disaster program directly. How do I want people to submit these loans? We will, or will they be emailed like normal, or will be a special link form, email address, etc. We actually will. We have a process. If you go to the website fountainheadcc.com/apply, we have a process where we will be sending you basically an uplink where you can submit the forms. So that'll be helpful.
That process will change as of about 6 o'clock today.
Okay.
So
Matt's saying the process is going to change
in terms of it will be more streamlined as of 6 o'clock today.
So we're working to streamline it as we're in here. So about 6 p.m. Eastern, we will probably have an even more streamlined process. So let's see, what else do we have? A lot of questions, but a lot of stuff we've already answered. I don't have a place at the moment to refer small businesses that are too small to qualify for an SBA. But get back to me, Steve, and we may have a solution for that. Does the SBA offer loans for non-for-profits, 501c3s? According to the press release that was issued Thursday and Friday of last week as part of the disaster program, they will be financing non-for-profits. I don't believe those are going to probably be done through the private sector. I think those will probably be done directly. But again, we have to wait for information from them. When do I think the SBA is going to have the new program details made available? I am sincerely hopeful it'll be this week. I'm sincerely hopeful it'll be, tomorrow or Wednesday, but I don't know. I don't want to speculate. I mean, having been through a few of these, oftentimes it takes a few weeks, and I'm afraid that's not going to be sufficient this time. There will be a lot of people that get harmed if we don't get these things out quicker. So that was another question someone else asked. Let's see here. Are there any FEMA funds for small businesses that have credit issues, and what are the credit requirements? I don't know. I know nothing about FEMA funds. I don't even think FEMA actually is a lender. That's why SBA has historically stepped in when there's a disaster and FEMA is called upon. So I don't know. You'll have to check back. What evidence do I have of a national quarantine will be in place by the end of the week? Well, Deborah, that was me speculating, as I said. But when I've seen 4 or 5 states already basically take those measures, I think it's merely a function of time before most of the rest of them take those measures. all part of the effort to flatten the curve, as they say. So will SBA deferments for the COVID-19 or coronavirus be considered? Of course, yeah. They're going to be considered if it's a 7A loan. The participating lender can defer for 3 months. They can actually defer up to 6 months if they get approval by the secondary market purchaser of the guarantee. So that happens regularly. If they have a 504 loan, it's a process by which they can work with the CDCs to get relief on. They can modify the first lien loan to give a deferment, but they can also request that the CDCs defer the payments on the permanent seconds. So is it only 7A that you're working on? Well, no. I mean, as I said earlier, we do three loan products. We do SBA 7A, we do 504, and we have a conventional product. But the only one of those three that's going to apply in this situation is going to be the SBA 7A. What's the out-of-pocket? We got to put something up, man, when we're doing these. What fees out of pocket will be required from your borrowers in the SBA program? The fees will be fairly minimal based on what we see right now with the proposed legislation. There will be no borrower guarantee fees, which is normally the case for SBA 7A loans. It's a bit of a tiered system that are usually financed into the project costs themselves. So that will be waived. I don't think you're going to have, pass-through costs waived, things like if we have to have an appraisal, although with a working capital loan, you probably wouldn't do that. Title searches, lien searches, judgment searches, credit reports, all of those things are usually passed through from the lender at cost to the borrower. I don't see those being waived. So I think it's going to be fairly minimal in terms of out-of-pocket costs. What is the window of time? So again, based on the proposed legislation, this $50 billion increased lending authority on top of the current $30 billion for the remainder of this fiscal year it'll go through to the end of September. So you go from 30 billion if it's all used for 7A, and I don't know that it will be, but if it is, let's assume we go from 30 billion to 80 billion, and it would be between now and the end of this fiscal year. Sure, there's always the chance they could extend it if things get really bad, but that's what you're looking like. In terms of the window, sort of the time frame from start to finish, a lot is going to depend on what requirements SBA has in this regard, and if they're going to give any consideration to relaxing some of these requirements. If they relax some of the requirements in order to expedite the processing of these loans, then my hope would be, maybe we can get submission to funding down to 2 or 3 weeks. That's probably the best of cases. Okay. Right now on a typical working capital 7A loan, if a borrower is very organized, which hopefully they'll be using their time wisely. If they're not really working, hopefully they can get all the documentation that we need. And, maybe normalized times, you're looking at say 30 to 40 days from start to finish. You can obviously be closer to 28 to 30 days if you're very organized. So again, it's all going to depend on what they roll out and how they do it. Let's see. We're going to wrap this up because we've been doing this for an hour or almost an hour. So I'm not really seeing too many new questions. Somebody said, I've reached the $5 million SBA loan limit. Am I eligible for these loans? I don't know. I will know more soon, but I don't know as of right now. How long will this process take? We just talked about that.
I had a question about the 7A link.
Okay.
The forms are currently not there. It could be because Kelly's working on that. So if
Okay.
they're seeing changes made over the next couple hours, it could be why.
Yeah, if we could ask for a little of your patience for the next couple hours. If you go to the apply page of our website. If for some reason you don't see the 7A application there, it's because we're working on it right now. So please come back, but give us a little time to make that simpler for you.
We will also send an update to everyone in this webinar when those
Yep.
are available as well.
And if you didn't hear Matt, he said we're going to send an update to everybody when those forms are available. I mean, there's a bunch of one-off questions. Hey gang, I would just suggest if your question didn't get answered today, shoot us an email and we'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. I don't want to take too much more of your time. I appreciate everybody sticking around as long as you have. Again, please follow us on social media for our latest updates. Visit our website, fountainheadcc.com, to the apply section. And if for some reason the 7A form is not there, it will be within a couple hours as we're updating it, streamlining it, trying to make it a little bit easier for you. And if you have more questions, concerns, please reach out to us. We'll try to answer as fast as we can. We hope to be a good, informative source in these turbulent times, and we hope everybody stays healthy and safe. And if you're a loan broker or other intermediary and you're looking to submit loans to us, we will be in touch soon about some trainings so that you can help us to help save America's businesses. So thank you so much for tuning in today, and wish you all well. Take care.